This is the Tactical Muffin Top, Muffin Top, episode 3 of 1 Second After Book Chat. I'm joined by currently my only friend, Justin B. How are you doing, Justin B?
Good evening, folks. I'm doing good, man.
Unrelated topic, like, share, and sub to Budget Survival Data.
Completely unrelated topic.
10,000% unrelated. Yeah, man, let's just run it. I'm trying to knock out part of this book. As we know, it's a long one, so
Yeah, it is.
we just
It's
let
good.
it run.
It's been
And
good, though.
yeah, let it run. If you have ideas or comments, questions in the chat, drop them in. As always, I'm going to be doing something else while we're doing here. And if I hear something that sparks my, hey, I need to stop this right now and say something real quick, I'll do it. But let the chat fly.
Let it rip.
We have one person watching. Oops, let me turn off my thingy. That's funny. I'm a bad boy. Anyway, let's run it, y'all. So we're going to hit up 1 second after. This is going to be episode trace. We currently have one person watching, so that's great.
It's probably lawfully.
Probably. We're doing good. Oh, well.
Leveling out. He felt an emotional surge at the sight of it, the black star in its side.
Can you hear it?
It roared past his house.
Yeah, sounds good.
Off the valley floor
Need-
that he
need
could
to go
almost
louder or
see
no?
into the pilot's side.
No, it's loud.
Elizabeth was jumping up and down, shrieking, waving. "We're saved!" Elizabeth shouted gleefully. "We're saved!" She sounded like a shipwrecked sailor on a desert island. John found himself waving as well, and the helicopter thundered on, heading due west, growing smaller, the sound receding, then disappearing, the silence all-engulfing again. The elation disappeared into a sense of overwhelming depression. Somehow, the sight of that lone bird was now symbolic of so much, and maybe it was a portent that within a few more minutes the electricity would come back on. He stood for several minutes, shading his eyes, gazing westward, and everything was as it had been. Dejected, Elizabeth walked over to the side of the swimming pool and sat down, dipping her feet in. Ben came over and splashed her. The water was still cold. Without the pump, there was no circulation into the solar heating panels. The water was still clear, though. John was dosing it heavily with chlorine, since it was, for now, their drinking and bathing water. The kids swimming in it would at least keep the water stirred up. Jen was already waiting in the car. Ben waved. John casually pointed to where the shotgun was, and Ben nodded in reply. Jennifer was down today with her friend Pat, joining a couple of other girls who were going to play Monopoly for the afternoon. Starting the Edsel, John rolled down the driveway, out onto Route 70, turned east, and drove the short distance up to Miller's nursing home, where Tyler was. Jen had gone up to check on him the day after the outage and said that though it was chaotic, Tyler was doing okay. She was silent now, tense, as they drove. None of them had left home yesterday except for one brief foray by John. He had laid out a long series of tasks. All the meat still in the freezer downstairs was pulled out and cooked thoroughly, with everyone eating as much as they could before wrapping the rest in plastic and storing it. He wasn't sure if it would help or not, but what salt they had was liberally sprinkled on the meat. Next came a privy pit dug at the edge of Connie's orchard, with a privacy screen made out of a tent. The girls had argued that the toilets inside were just fine, and there had been a rather delicate discussion about what the privy could be used for and what the toilets inside would be used for. "Oh, for that, just do it like Zach does," Jennifer replied with a grin. "Against a tree." It took a bit of explaining as to the health hazard of that suggestion, then a bit of retrofitting around the house. The waterbed was already getting chilly without a heater, so extra blankets were dragged up from the basement to lay down as a covering, some old decorative candles pulled out, old clothes that might be cut into strips for toilet paper, and to his surprise, an old chainsaw, not used in years, actually started up after Ben fiddled around with it for a while. He then made one quick run down to the market on the east side of town, the old Food Lion, hoping to stock up on some goods, canned food, toilet paper. But it had already been picked over clean. In fact, it looked more as if it had been looted. He could have kicked himself for not having seen to this shopping before the panicked rush. One of the managers was still inside the darkened store, just sitting, reading a magazine, when John came in. "Hell of a show here last night, Professor," he announced. "Never thought I'd see friends and neighbors act like they did. People running around, loading up baskets to overflowing. I kept trying to say no cash, no sale. And well, they just started pushing by me and that set it off. Place was pretty well cleaned out before the cops finally showed up." He shrugged. "Mind if I look around?" John asked. "Sure, be my guest, sir." There was not a basket to be found, so he just simply wandered up and down the aisles. A half dozen or so were in the store doing as he did. One elderly couple was prowling through the frozen food freezers, pulling out smashed and soggy boxes of vegetables and waffles, stuffing them into a plastic trash bag. All the canned goods were picked clean, of course. Underfoot were smashed bottles, busted cans, bits of meat, chicken, and seafood. The floor was slippery and began to smell in the heat. Hundreds of flies were already buzzing about. Over in the bakery goods, he found a busted 20-pound bag of flour kicked to one side on the floor and immediately grabbed it. In the pet foods was a 25-pound bag of dry dog food torn open, maybe 15 to 20 pounds still inside, which he grabbed as well. Near the door, he saw a 10-pound bag of rock salt left over from winter and instantly snatched it. There was not much else, and he headed for the door. He looked at the manager. "Just take it, Doc. It's okay." John paused, curious. "Why are you here, Ernie?" He motioned to the darkened store. The elderly couple slowly dragged the trash bag full of defrosted food. The air around him was thick with the rising scent of decay. Ernie looked at him, slowly shaking his head. "Don't know, Doc. Habit, I guess. No family. Dolores and the kids left me last year. Just habit, I guess." John nodded his thanks and tossed the loot into the back seat of the car. Backing up to the dollar store, he went in and found much the same chaos, this store torn apart with no one inside. "Who's in there?" Turning, he saw Vern Cooper, one of the town police, looking through the broken front door. "It's me, Vern, John Matherson." "Out of there now, sir." He came out and felt a change, a profound change in his world. Vern had always been so easygoing, almost a bit of the town's Barney Fife. Now he was carrying a shotgun, and it was half raised, not quite pointing at John, but almost. "Just looking around, Vern." "John, I could arrest you for looting." "What?" "Just that, John. It got real bad here last night." "Yeah, I heard." "Just get out of here and go home, John." Vern sighed. John didn't hang around to ask for details and did as Vern suggested. At the U-Rent store, they had already sold out of extra propane tanks, and John didn't even bother to go into the hardware store. It was utter chaos, with a line out the door and halfway down the block. The mere fact that he had a car that moved caused nearly everyone to turn and look at him, a reaction that made him nervous, so he just turned around and went home. The rock salt was a golden find, he realized, and they had then unpacked all the meat, salted it down, then repacked it. Next had come a wood detail, for sooner rather than later, he knew, the propane for the grill would run out, and by the end of the day, they were all exhausted. He had promised Jen they'd go see Tyler today, then make a run up to her house to get some clothes and, of course, check on the cat, so John got back in the car. It was only a short drive up to the nursing home, just about a mile. They passed half a dozen abandoned cars, a family walking by in the opposite direction, mother and father both pushing supermarket shopping carts, one with 2 kids inside, the other stacked with some few family treasures. Who they were he didn't know. Where they were going he could not figure out. Nor did he slow to find out. Again, such a change. A week ago, seeing a couple like that, he'd have pulled over, asked if they needed a lift. The sight was so pathetic. As they pulled into the parking lot of the nursing home, John instantly knew something was terribly wrong. 3 people were wandering about outside. At the sight of them, he could see they were patients, shuffling, confused, one of them naked. "My God, what is going on here?" Jen gasped. John started to go for the nearest of the wanderers, to guide her back inside, but Jen shouted for him to follow her. And the moment he opened the door, he knew something was horribly wrong. The stench was overwhelming, so bad that he gagged, backed out, and gasped for breath. Jen, made of far sterner stuff, just stood in the doorway. "Take a few deep breaths. I'll be down in Tyler's room." John waited for a moment, tempted to light a cigarette. He held back, having gone through 5 packs in just 2 days. That left him 6 packs, plus 2 cartons, and he was already beginning to count each one. He took another deep breath, braced himself, and went in. Again the stench, feces, urine, vomit. He gasped, struggled, nearly vomiting, and fought it down. The corridor, which a week before had been so brightly lit and spotless, was dark. A large linen gurney, parked in a side alcove, the source of the worst of the smell. He quickly walked past it, turned the corner, and reached the West Wing's nurses' station. One woman was behind the counter and looked up at him wearily. Her gown of Winnie the Pooh's was stained and stained again. He spotted her name tag, Caroline, and vaguely remembered she was usually part of the night shift. He wanted to blow, but could see she was exhausted, beleaguered. "How are you, Caroline?" "Fine, I guess," she said woodenly. He looked down the corridor. The stench was so overwhelming that he felt it should be a visible fog. "What in the hell is going on here?" he asked. "What do you mean?" She was in shock. He could now see that. The poor girl was numbed, hollow-eyed. "When did you last sleep?" She looked up at the clock on the wall. It was frozen at 4:50. Feeble cries echoed down the corridor. "Help me! Help me! Help me!" "A few hours last night, I guess." "Are any other staff here?" "There's Janice down on the other wing. I think Waldo is still here." "And that's it?" She nodded. "I'll be right back." He braced himself and started down the corridor. All exterior doors were open, but there was no breeze and the heat was suffocating. Yet another building designed for complete climate control and year-round comfort with computerized environmental controls. The small windows in each room barely cracked open, and the temperature inside was as high, perhaps higher, than outside. The first room he looked into revealed an elderly woman. He remembered her as having Alzheimer's. She was rocking back and forth, sheets kicked off, lying in her own filth. The next room, 2 elderly men, one sitting in a motorized wheelchair that no longer moved, the other lying on a bed, the sheets drenched in urine. They both glanced up at him. "Son, could you get us some water?" the one in the wheelchair asked, ever so politely. "Sure." He backed out of the room and went back to the desk. "Can I have a pitcher for some water?" She shook her head. "We ran out last night." "What do you mean, ran out?" "Just that. No running water." Don't you have a reserve tank? Aren't you supposed to have a reserve somewhere? I don't know, she said listlessly. I think there's an emergency well that runs off the generator. Jesus Christ. He opened the door to the hallway bathroom and recoiled, gagging. A woman was sitting on the toilet, slumped over, dead. Already the smell of decay filling the tiny room. He turned and went back down the main corridor to the kitchen, storming in. One elderly man was there, balanced on his walker. Heavy steel fridge door open, a package of hot dogs in his hand, and he was eating them cold. "Hi there," the man said. "Care for one?" And he offered the pack up. "No, thanks." John went over to the sink, turned the taps. Nothing. Damn it. Back out in the dining area, he took the lid off a large recessed canister that usually held ice. There was water in the bottom, and taking 2 juice cups, he filled them up and was back out and down the hall, returning to the room with the 2 old men. He handed each of them a cup. "Thank God," the one in the wheelchair whispered, sipping on it, John having to hold the other cup so that the man in the bed could sip it down. The man in the wheelchair was wearing an old commemorative cap, big red one, Omaha Beach, 1944-2004, emblazoned on it. Pins across the front, which John instantly recognized. Combat infantry badge, silver star, 2 purple hearts, miniature sergeant's chevrons. He felt sick looking at the man, sipping the last of the water in the cup and holding it back up. "Son, I hate to bother you," the man whispered. "My chair just won't move. Would you mind getting me another drink?" "John, where in hell are you?" It was Jen, her voice shrill. "Right there, Mom." "Sir, I'll be back shortly," John said, and he fled the room. He tried to not look into the rooms as he walked down the corridor. An elderly woman, naked, sitting curled up and crying, a sickly scent from the next room, and he dared to look in. A body of a bloated man, face yellowing with the beginnings of decay, bed sheets kicked off from his final struggle, his roommate sitting in a chair, looking vacantly out the window. John reached Tyler's room, Jen in the doorway, crying. "We got to take him home," she said. For a moment, John thought Tyler was dead, head back, face unshaved. The IV was still in his arm. Gravity-fed, it was empty. The feeding tube into his stomach was driven by a small electrical pump, the plastic container attached to it, empty. He was semi-conscious, muttering incoherently. The smell of feces hung in the room, and John struggled to control his stomach. It was something that always defeated him. He prided himself on being a damn good father, but when Mary was alive, the diapers were her job. Mary's chemo was a nightmare, but he had manfully stood by, holding her when she vomited, cleaning her up, then rushing to the bathroom to vomit as well. After she died, when the kids were sick, Jen would come over to help. He was horrified by what he had to confront now. "I'll clean him up," Jen said. "You find a gurney so we can move him out to the car." "How in hell are you going to clean him up?" John gasped. "Just find a gurney. I'll take care of the rest." He backed out of the room and stormed back down the corridor to the nurse's station. "I'm pulling my father-in-law out." "Good. You should," Caroline said quietly. "How in God's name can you allow this?" She looked up at him, and then just dissolved into sobs. "No one's come in to work. I've been here since the power went off. Wallace and Kimberly, they took off last night. Said they had to get home somehow to check on their kids and would come back, but they haven't. I've got a kid at home, too. Her father's such a bum, shacked up with someone else now. I'm worried he hasn't gone over to check on her, and she's alone." Caroline looked at him. Tears were streaming down her face. "I need a smoke," John said. She nodded and fumbled in her purse and pulled out a pack, as if he were asking for one. He shook his head, reached into his pocket, and took 2 cigarettes out, offering her one. They lit up. It was a nursing home, but at this moment he felt at least a smoke would mask the smell and help calm her down. She took a deep drag, exhaled, and the tears stopped. "I need a gurney to move my father-in-law." "I think you'll find one down the next corridor. Waldo took it a couple of hours ago." "When was the last time these people were cleaned, fed, had water?" "I don't know." "Think, damn it." "I think 2 days ago. Then it just all seemed to unravel. Mr. Yarborough died, then Miss Emily, then Mr. Cohen. No one's come to take their bodies. Usually the funeral home has the hearse here within a half hour. I think I called, but they haven't shown up. Mrs. Johnston in room 23 fell. I think she broke her hip, and Mr. Brunelli, I think he's had another heart attack. Now they're all dying, all of them. Miss Kilpatrick is dead in the next room. God, how I loved her." And she started to sob again. He remembered Miss Kilpatrick, actually rather young. Bad auto accident, paralyzed from the waist down, and in rehab and training before going home. Science teacher at the high school until she was nailed head-on by a drunk, one of her own students. "She got some scissors and cut her wrists. She's dead in the sitting room." He didn't even see her as they came in. "She said she knew what had happened and wouldn't live through it." "Caroline, you've got to get help up here." "I don't know. I'm just an LPN. I'm not trained for this, sir." She began to sob again. "Where's the supervisor?" "In her office, I think." He nodded, left Caroline, and went down towards the opposite wing and turned into the administrative corridor. The door to the supervisor's office was closed, and without bothering to knock, he pushed it open. The woman behind the desk was fast asleep, head on her desk. "Ira, wake up!" John snapped angrily. She raised her head. "Professor Matheson?" "Yes, that's me." She rubbed her eyes and sat up. "I know you must be upset." "Upset isn't the word for it. This is an outrage." She nodded silently. "I know. I've got 4 people in the building, maybe 3. I think Kimberly took off. I sent the last of our kitchen staff down to the town to try and get help, but that was hours ago and no one's come back. No water, no air conditioning, no refrigeration for food or medication." She fell silent, then looked down at a checklist on her desk. The woman was obviously pushed over the edge and reverting to an almost standard routine to hide in. "Last rounds I counted 17 dead. 6 families have pulled their relatives out. Let's see, that leaves 40 patients and 3 staff on overtime. Normally during the day I have over 30 working here." God, you'd think everyone would have pulled their people out, John thought, then realized the difficulties of that. Some had no family nearby at all. A couple retired here, the spouse died, the other wound up here, the kids somewhere else, New York, California, Chicago, the American way. Even for locals, just 5 or 10 miles away, how to get a sick, demented, or dying parent or grandparent moved. And many most likely just assumed or wanted to assume that Grandpa is safe there. We're paying $5,000 a month to make sure of that. "But you've got to do something," John protested weakly. "Pray, tell me what I should do first," she said quietly. "Did I tell you we were robbed last night?" "What?" "Some punks. One had a gun and demanded the drugs. They took all the painkillers, pills, the liquid morphine." "Who?" "I don't know. The one with the gun had a shaved head, earring, tattoo of a serpent on his left arm, red motorbike." "Animals," John said coldly. Tyler was on a morphine pump. Jesus, if he comes round, it will be hell for him. "That's what I called them, and they laughed." John found he couldn't answer her and was filled with a sudden pity for her. She was a good woman, her eldest son a member of his scout troop a couple of years back. "I'll get into town and see if we can get these people evacuated somehow." "Thank you. I'm taking my father-in-law out now." "That's good. What about his feeding tube, the formula?" "I wouldn't trust the formula anymore. It's supposed to be refrigerated." "We still might have some cans of Ensure. Use a funnel and gravity feed it into him." John nodded, stomach rebelling. "I better go." He left her in her miserable solitude and went into the next corridor. It was a deeper hell here. The entire wing was the restricted wing. All the patients with Alzheimer's or another form of severe dementia. A number of them were out in the hallway, those capable of some mobility wandering aimlessly. At his approach, reaching out with withered hands, some speaking, others just muttering or making incoherent sounds. He felt as if he had just fallen into a surreal nightmare. He could not stop for them, help them. To do so would trap him in the nightmare forever. Passing an emergency exit door, he looked outside. There was a patient slowly shuffling towards the woods. With the entire security system down, the ankle bracelets that were touted as the newest thing in safety, which automatically locked the door and set off an alarm at the nurse's station if someone with dementia tried to open it, were now deactivated. It was a wonder that any who could still walk were inside the building, and he wondered how many had indeed just wandered into the woods. He spotted a gurney at the end of the corridor, and as he approached it, to his horror, he saw that the body of a small, withered old man was on it, an elderly woman standing beside the body, stroking the man's hair. John approached, determined to take the gurney if need be, but as she looked up at him, his will failed, and he backed away, then fled the ward. He returned back to the wing where Tyler was. Somehow, Jen had indeed cleaned him up. A pile of torn, soiled sheets tossed on the floor, a torn blanket wrapped around him. She looked at John, eyes calm, her strength amazing him. "Did you find a gurney?" "I'll carry him out." She had already disconnected the hose of the feeding tube and the IV tube. John slipped his arms under Tyler and stood up. The man, in spite of his wasting away, was still heavy, and John braced himself for a second before daring to take a step. He turned to ease out the door, and then continued out into the corridor, walking fast, a race against dropping Tyler. They went past the desk. Caroline said nothing. Jen raced ahead to open the back door. In the corner of the sitting room, John saw the slumped-over body of Miss Kilpatrick in the corner. A pool of drying blood was soaked into the Berber carpet beneath her. Flies were swarming on it. Gasping for breath, John was out the door and down to the car, laying Tyler down in the back seat. He opened his eyes. There was a glint of recognition. "It's okay, Tyler. We're taking you home. It's okay." He couldn't speak. The cancer had long ago devoured his throat, vocal cords, and spread into his chest. His breathing was raspy, sounding like another bout of pneumonia was setting in. Still, he had enough strength to grasp.
Pat Rad in the house, everybody. Pat, you got any words of wisdom? We're doing the book chat, buddy.
Nope, not yet.
All right. They're in the care home now. Getting his father-in-law. Yeah, this is a gross part. This is the cross-contamination and trying to have the medical stocked up for this is what people will overlook. This will take a lot of people out.
John's arm and squeeze it, then let go. "Jen, start the car. I'll be right back." And John handed her the keys. He went back in and returned to the nurse's station. "Caroline, I need some Ensure." She nodded towards the storage room. He went in. Again, a struggle for control. Someone had vomited on the floor. He gingerly stepped around the mess, tearing open storage cabinets. The bandage that covered his injured finger was soaked through with God knows what and finally just slipped off. Empty shipping cases of the precious liquid were scattered about, and when just about to give up, he found 2 cartons of 24 cans, grabbed them, and stepped back out. He started for the door, hesitated, and then turned, going back to the room with the 2 old men. He took 2 six-packs and placed them on the old veteran's lap. "Thanks for what you once did for us, Sergeant," he whispered. The old man smiled and nodded. John felt a bit foolish at first, but could not stop himself. He came to attention and saluted the old man, who stiffened in his chair, smiled, and returned the salute. John left him and headed to the car. Dumping the cans onto the floor of the front seat of the car, John climbed in. "Get us the hell out of here," John said. He turned away, blocking out the sight of the demented patients wandering about outside. If he stopped for them, he would be pulled back into the nightmare, with Tyler stuck in the back seat in the sweltering heat. They drove out, and several minutes later were back home. "Ben, Elizabeth!" John shouted. The 2 kids, soaking wet, came out of the pool laughing, but then slowed as they saw John struggling to maneuver Tyler out of the car. Elizabeth stepped back. "Oh, Pop," and she began to cry. "You need help, sir?" Ben asked nervously. "Just get the door." John carried Tyler in, Jen following, and headed for Jennifer's room, putting him down on her bed, and then stood up. Jen pulled a chair over and was by Tyler's side, gently brushing his cheek. "It's okay, Tyler. We're home, she whispered. John stepped back, suddenly feeling a terrible need to wash. Elizabeth stood in the living room, looking wide-eyed towards Jen's room. "Elizabeth," she was crying, "it's going to be hard, but we've got to handle it. I want you to go get a bucket of water, heat it up on the grill, find some soap, some towels, then go in and help Grandma." Elizabeth stifled back a sob and nodded. He was glad Jennifer was not home to have seen this. He went into the master bathroom. He poured some water from a bucket into the sink and thoroughly washed his hands. Then, grimacing, the pain coursing up his arm, he doused his wound with some rubbing alcohol. He cut a piece of old sheeting taken from the linen closet and wrapped it around the cut in his hand and went back to Jennifer's room. "Mom, you okay?" She looked up at him and smiled. "Sure. I can handle this now, John. Thank you." Ben came in, carrying the warm bucket, Elizabeth hesitating before coming in with a towel and soap. "Elizabeth, honey, your Pop is a proud man," Jen said, her features serious. "I don't think he'd want his granddaughter helping with this." Jen looked at John. "And you, John, have the weakest stomach in the world. Why don't you 2 go outside?" "I'll stay," Ben said quietly. All 3 looked at him with surprise. "Heck, I diapered my kid brother 100 times. I'll help, Miss Jen." "Good man, Ben." "Actually, I better go into town," John said. "I'll see if we can get some help up there." "That's good, John." He hesitated and looked at Elizabeth. "Maybe you should come along." "You sure, Dad?" "It's okay." She looked at him with relief, and the 2 went to the car and got in. "Sorry, Dad. I don't think I could have handled that. I'd have tried, though." "Listen, kid, I barely handled it myself. Buckle up." She laughed softly, though still shaken. "This is a 59 Edsel, Dad. No seat belts." They drove into town, and he immediately felt as if he was now coming into an entirely different world. Pete's Free Barbecue was shut down, the small-town feel of an outdoor fair atmosphere gone. 2 police officers, both armed with shotguns, stood outside the elementary school. A large crowd standing in line. An open fire was burning, a kettle hung over it. There were a half-dozen more cops and an equal number of firemen in a loose cordon around the town hall, police station, and firehouse. Several men were at the back of Jim Bartlett's Volkswagen bus, offloading boxes. There was an assortment of bicycles, a few motorbikes, an old Harley motorcycle, a Jeep from the garage, the antique World War II Jeep, and a few old farm pickup trucks parked there as well. The doors into the firehouse open, the engines rolled out. Boxes, crates, containers, filling up inside. There was another line formed, an old military-style water tank on wheels, a guard by the side of it, a line of people carrying plastic jugs. John rolled to a stop and got out with Elizabeth. 1 gallon per person, the guard was saying, repeating himself over and over, as John pulled Elizabeth closer into his side and headed towards the mayor's office. Though the downtown area had water, those living upslope were out and now having to do the long walk just to get a single gallon. One of the guards saw John and nodded. "Hi, Professor." It was one of his old students, graduated several years back, now a teacher in the middle school, and he was embarrassed that he couldn't remember his name. "What's going on?" "Well, Charlie declared martial law. We're moving all medical supplies here to the firehouse and any food that can still be retrieved from the supermarkets, but most of that got cleaned out." "I saw Food Lion. But all of the markets?" "Well, sir, I guess you could say it was a riot. Folks just started storming into the markets, taking what they wanted and then getting out. It got pretty ugly there for a while, mostly the outsiders." "Outsiders?" "You know, the folks from the highway." The way he said outsiders hit a nerve with John.
Lawfully armed, welcome to the fold.
Oh boy, play that thing.
Play that thing.
Didn't feel right. We had a lot of people coming down the road from Asheville, a lot of them people who live here who got stranded, but a lot of people just getting out of the city as well. 1,000 or more flooded in here last night. Word is it's pretty bad up there. The folks coming in from Asheville said a mob, mostly kids, started busting up the Asheville Mall, vandals, and part of it burned. Somebody said over 50 people were killed, hundreds of people rampaging through the stores along Tunnel Road. He took it in. Quite a few dead on the road, they say, as well. People collapsing, bad hearts, elderly. Somebody said he counted at least 20 dead between here and exit 53. It was hard to believe. "Thanks. Is the mayor in?" "She sure is. They're having some sort of conference in there." He didn't ask for permission. He just headed in and parked Elizabeth by the door, telling her not to move. As he walked in, his eye caught the commemorative plaque, 9/11/01, in remembrance of the first responders who gave their lives. Rest in peace. Half a dozen men and women milled about in the corridor. The door into the conference room was closed. "I'd like to see the mayor," John said to one of the cops standing by the door. "There's a meeting on in there, sir." "I know, but this is urgent." "I think, sir, you'll have to wait." "This can't wait," John said loudly. "Sir, please just go outside and wait." The memory of the vet begging for a drink of water pushed John forward. "I think I'll see her now," John said sharply. "Now step aside. Sir, don't force me to stop you." He could see that the cop, not much more than a kid, was still out of his league. A week ago, he was most likely the junior kid on the force, the biggest challenge ever faced, a drunk on a Saturday night. John reached past him, grabbed the doorknob, and pushed the door open. "Sir, please step back." Charlie, Kate, and Tom were in the room along with Doc Keller and, interestingly, Washington Parker, and an elderly couple who looked vaguely familiar. "It's okay, Jane. That's Professor Matheson. Come on in, John." John gave a curt nod to the young policeman and walked in. Everyone was gazing at John, and he suddenly felt a touch of embarrassment for barging in thus, but the memory of what he had seen in the nursing home stilled that. "What is it, John, that's got you all fired up?" Charlie asked. "I was just up at Miller's nursing home. My God, it's a hellhole up there." "We know all about it, John," Kate said. Mr. Parker here is sending a bunch of kids, volunteers from the college, to help out with some food and water. Keller's canvassing the refugees for nurses to go help as well. I think it's going to take more than some kids and a few nurses, John replied. But thanks, Washington. You know they were robbed? Some punks stole all the morphine and painkillers. We own that, too, John, Tom said softly. Now John did feel embarrassed. Charlie hesitated, made eye contact with Kate, and she nodded. John, actually, I should have invited you to this meeting, Charlie said softly. We are talking some things over. Maybe you can give us some input. Do you know the Barbers? John looked over at the elderly couple. In fact, he did know them. They had a summer home, actually more of a mansion, up in the cove, just up the road from his in-laws. They looked haggard, Mrs. Barber pale, struggling, it seemed, to stay awake. They just got through from Charlotte. Don Barber nodded slowly. Go on, please, Kate said. Well, as I was saying, Don continued, by yesterday morning it was out of control, and what I was just telling you, absolute utter stupidity. A couple of helicopters flew in from Fort Bragg the morning after the power went off, landed near Town Hall. A dozen armed troopers got out. Some ass of a major goes in, comes out 20 minutes later, they take off, and then someone comes running out saying, we're at war. No one spoke. War with who? Tom asked. I don't know. Nobody knows. That one idiot running out shouting we were at war, that we were hit with nuclear weapons and had already lost, set everything off. Just one loudmouth bastard. He paused and looked over at his wife. Sorry, Wendy. Well, he was a stupid bastard, she whispered, barely keeping her eyes open, and John smiled. Look, I'm old enough to remember 1941, Kennedy in 1963, when Reagan was shot, 2001, of course. Always we at least had radios, television, someone to tell us what was going on, what to do, offering leadership, and that rallied us together. This time it's a vacuum. Just that one idiot running out, and of course a crowd had gathered because of the helicopters landing, then taking off. I got down to the street and rumor was building on rumor. You could hear it. People talking about nukes. Someone starts shouting about fallout, killing them all, and that was it. Within an hour, downtown was in chaos. People looting, fighting with each other, and impossible to control. The police were caught completely off guard. Things had been quiet throughout the night. A couple of old cars had been taken by the police and fire departments, driven up and down the streets, someone leaning out the window with an old megaphone and telling folks to stay calm, help was on the way. And so far it was working. But that panic ended it. John hesitated, but had to ask, were we nuked? I mean, a full attack? Don shook his head. I know the district attorney for the county. I got my way into his office. That goddamn fool running out, some half-ass bureaucrat, heard a few minutes of the briefing, panicked, and was out the door. As for the truth of it, there's precious little. Remember, it was a couple of days after 9/11 before things started to sort out, and we had full communications then. Now, well, according to the district attorney, they were told that 1, maybe 2 or 3 nuclear weapons were detonated over the United States, up high, a couple of 100 miles up. It's EMP for certain, then, John interjected. That's what the DA said. Also, they were told some communications at Fort Bragg survived. Aircraft parked inside protective shelters, some vehicles as well. Other than that, it shut down the entire power grid of the United States, except for a few radios and machines that this major said were hardened. He said the Army was going to be working on getting things up and running and for folks to stay calm till then, but it was going to take several weeks. Don shook his head. It'd have been better if he never showed up. The way he flew in, then took off, made it look like he was running out, and that helped the panic. Several weeks, my ass, John muttered. Don fell silent. He looked at Kate. You read that report I left here? John asked. She nodded. Start thinking months, years. What Mr. Barber just told us confirmed it. I know, John. Her tone indicated to him that she wanted him to stand back a bit, and he realized she was right. "Sir, what happened then?" Charlie asked. "Well, it was already edgy. 2 planes had crashed in the downtown, one of them a 737, right after the power went off. Hell of a mess. Some people were thinking it might have been some sort of failed terrorist strike. Like I said, without any radios, without any communications, rumors running ahead of the truth the way they always do. No one knew, and thus everyone was an expert, and everyone was soon scaring the hell out of each other. It was then that I realized I better get Wendy and myself out of Charlotte and up here." "Why here?" Kate asked. "Because it's safe here," Don said. He looked around the room as if seeking some assurance. "Sure, Don," Charlie said. "You're okay now. You're with neighbors now." "So I walked home from my office downtown, 4 miles. At that moment I thought the toughest 4 miles I've ever been through since I got shot down over Korea and had to hike back to our lines. I got Wendy, and from there it took us 2 days to walk to the airstrip where I keep my L3. "An L3? What the heck is that?" Tom asked. "Military designation for a World War II Aeronka recon plane. We used them in Korea as well for liaison and artillery spotting. It's nearly identical to the one I flew as an artillery spotter in Korea." He smiled. "Found her as a junker about 10 years back and fully restored her to her original shape. She's a beauty to fly, slow and low." John could not help but smile. Like a lot of older vets, when Don talked about something like that, the years seemed to drift away from his face, and his eyes were young again as he spoke of a happy memory. "All the time we were walking, I was afraid she'd be taken or ruined. But sure enough, she was still in the hangar. Nothing fancy in her, restored to original condition. Maybe that's what saved her. No electronics whatsoever. Could never find a period radio, so all I used was a small handheld GPS when I took her up. Of course, that piece of equipment was fried, but the plane was okay." He paused. "In the old days, you worked your throttle, primed the cylinders by pumping, magneto switch on, and got someone to grab the propeller, and she started right up." "So you flew here?" John asked. "Sure did. Got airborne about 4 hours ago and circled over Charlotte." He paused and lowered his head. "I saw some bad things in Korea. I was there the second time the commies took Seoul. I never thought I'd see the likes of it here, in America." "What did you see?" Kate asked quietly. 9/11, for example. The way people in New York and Washington acted that day and pulled together, no panic, really, when you think back on it. Giuliani on television, then the president. It pulled us together. But it's a vacuum now, and in the cities especially, it went out of control, like I said. Downtown Charlotte was burning. I could see there was no firefighting equipment out. The water pressure was already failing by the time I decided to walk home, and at my house it was already dry. Looting, people running crazy." He paused. "I saw dead people lying in the streets, National Guard ringing a shopping plaza, thousands swarming around trying to break through to get at the food inside, and you could see the guardsmen falling back, shooting into the crowd. It looked like the old newsreels from the Second World War, or like Saigon when it fell, like what happened over there in Somalia. I never dreamed I'd see it here. Never here." He fell silent for a moment, gazing out the window. "We flew along I-85, then up through Hickory Nut Gorge. My first thought was to land in Asheville, but then what? We'd still be 30 miles from home." "Did you see anything moving?" Charlie asked, "especially over in Asheville." "It looked like a couple of cars, but nothing else. A lot of burning, some houses, several forest fires. I could see the one up on Craggy from 50 miles away. Passed over the wreck of a commuter plane just short of Asheville that was still burning." "Why this talk about so many planes down?" Kate asked. "Because nearly every commercial liner out there is so loaded with electronics now," Don replied. "Hell, the stick isn't even connected to a wire anymore like in the old days. It's computer links for the control surfaces. Pop that, most likely every last plane in America nosed in. Jesus, Tom sighed. On 9/11, we only lost 4. Figure around 3,000 planes falling out of the sky, which is the typical number airborne around that time of day, Don said coldly. 200 passengers on average per plane. Do the math. He sighed again, looking off as if a great distance into a dark land. The mall was burning, big fire there. That convinced me to set down as close to home as possible. If I landed at the airport, I'd never have gotten here. There was a couple of 100 yards on I-40 just west of town that was wide open, and that little baby of mine just squeezed right in. Tom grinned. Damnedest sight I've ever seen. A plane taxiing down the exit ramp, then parking in the Ingram's lot, painted just like the old Army planes, complete with D-Day invasion stripes. Hell, it made my heart leap at the sight of it. You've got it guarded? Charlie asked. Of course I do. It's an asset for us. Thank you, Mr. Barber, Charlie said. I'm glad you made it home. Look, we're kind of bushed. Is there any way we can find a ride up to our place? I think we can arrange something special for you, Charlie said, for a swap. And that is, we can use your plane. As long as I'm flying it, you can, he said defensively. I put 5 years into restoring her so no one else touches her but me. A little work, and I can retrofit her to burn automobile gas. But wherever you want me to go, I'll do it. A deal. Charlie stood up and went to the door, opening it. One last thing, Don said. On the interstates, they're swarming with people, thousands of them, like an exodus. And they're coming this way. He left the room, and Charlie closed the door. What I figured, Charlie said softly. We talked about it in some of the disaster exercises, the ones centered on a conventional nuclear strike, 1 or more weapons hitting urban centers. If the crap hits the fan, first there'll be rioting, people snatching what they think they need to survive. Then, like a homing instinct, people will flee the city and literally head for the hills. The same concern with the biological outbreak. Panic, then trying to head for the hills. Why? Kate asked. Why are we here? John interjected. What do you mean? When you get down to the deepest core reasons. Sure, I moved here because of Mary, but why were her parents here? There seems to be some sort of instinct, or call it a Mayberry fantasy, that up in the hills things are secure, safe, neighborly. People will help each other. When you think about it, before all this happened, that's exactly how we were. Well, it sure as hell wasn't neighborly yesterday, Tom said. How bad did it get? John asked. You didn't see it? John wondered if Tom was making a jab at him, implying that Vern had talked to him about the foray into the dollar store. I was up nearly all day at home, taking care of things. I came down late in the day to Food Lion, and it was wiped. Yeah, Vern said he ran into you poking around the dollar store, Tom finally said, coolly. Jesus, Tom, if I was going to be looting, I'd pick a place a damn sight better than that. He suddenly wondered if what few things he did pick up would now indeed classify him as a looter. Hell, in Russia and Germany during the war, people got shot for a lot less. In Leningrad, stealing a slice of bread could get you hung. Then why were you in there? Go ahead and arrest me if that's what you're implying, John snapped. Both of you? Kate interjected. Cool it. Look, John, it got real bad here, Charlie said. My fault, maybe. I should have slapped down strict martial law the first day. I didn't. The night between the second and third days, it was as if a mass panic hit the town. Most people still don't have it really figured out what happened. All they know is something bad happened. First, there was the run on the banks to get their money out. But all the banks use electronic records for accounts, and digging up the paperwork for each takes time. Not like the old days when we still had bank books and they got stamped. They were mobbed. And that's where Tom had most of his people. The banks quickly ran out of money. Before I put a stop to it, one woman was actually trying to pull out $50,000 from First Charter. John almost had to laugh at that one. It's nothing but paper now anyhow, he sighed. I don't need to hear that, Kate interjected. Sorry, Kate, but you better hear it. Until the federal government truly gets things stitched back together, and with that, records retrieved, and the same for financial institutions, what little paper money there is floating around out there is worthless. Our entire economy is built now on electronic money. It's all faith. And if a crack appears in that faith, then what? It's going to be barter then, isn't it? Charlie asked. John nodded in agreement. And you set the parameters. How so? I'd suggest impounding anything still out there that has worth for survival. Medicine, tools, auto parts that can be used to retrofit, construction materials, especially piping and such, and most of all, food. Impound it, haul it up here, set up rationing, and the rations become the medium of exchange for various things. Sounds communist to me, Tom sniffed. Survival, John replied sharply. And Tom, you know my politics, so don't insult me. Well, a lot of what you said is gone, Charlie replied. Damn, we were caught flat-footed. Like I said, never a plan in place. The run on the banks triggered it. From there, people storming into stores to buy anything and everything. Our people were basically on foot as well, and besides, we were also used to having radios in our police cars to tell us what the hell was going on. The looting at the Ingrams was full-blown before one of the 2 officers stationed down there was able to run the mile up here to tell us. By the time we got people back down there to control it, it was already over. Hell, there were even people going through the fast food places by the interstate waving hundreds of dollars wanting to buy up the burgers uncooked. The smart ones, though, they piled into the 3 big markets in town, and it went from lines 20 deep to suddenly just people pushing out the door. Did anyone try to stop them? And he looked at Tom. Tom sighed. John, we're talking about our neighbors here. Damn it all, I saw folks from my church in there, parents of my kids' friends. Yeah, I tried to stop them, but I'll be damned if we were going to shoot them. Somewhere around 20 people died anyhow, Kate said. Mostly collapses, heart attacks. A display case in Ingram's was shattered. Someone fell into it and bled to death. John, people just pushed past that woman even as she died, Tom said quietly. John looked out the window to Bartlett's VW as it puttered off, leaving behind a stack of boxes, and headed back up Montreat Road. John, it was surreal, Charlie said. Everybody on foot, the streets filled with people. I think the most coveted item yesterday was a supermarket shopping cart. Every last one has been looted, and people were just walking up and down the street pushing their loads home. That's why the heart attacks, Doc Keller finally interjected. John looked at his old friend. Keller, who as a very young general practitioner had brought Mary into the world, was with her when she left. He now tended to Jennifer, and usually would drop over to the house once a month or so to check on my favorite girl, and then stay for a scotch and a round of chess. It rankled him that 9 times out of 10 John won. Fail, combined with people actually having to walk more than 50 yards, Doc Keller continued. There's been something like 300 deaths since this started. 300? Why not? Keller said dryly. You forget how fragile we really are. The most pampered generations in the history of humanity. Heart attacks, quite a few just damn stupid accidents, at least 8 murders and several suicides. To put it coldly, my friends, all the ones who should have died years ago would have died years ago without beta blockers, stents, angioplasties, pacemakers, exotic medications. Well, now they're dying all at once. John glared at Keller for a moment, wondering what else he was thinking. It even hit pacemakers? Charlie asked. Good God, my mother has one. Everyone looked at him. She's in Florida. I don't know how she is. And his voice trailed off. I'm sorry, Charlie, Keller said, but I've got to be blunt. Some, yes, strangely, are still working, but how long the batteries will hold, well, I guess that's a countdown for them. But some died within minutes or hours. John looked back at Charlie. You're going to have to take control, Charlie. And John said it sharply, a touch of the command voice in his tone, to shock Charlie back to the reality of the meeting. Clamp down hard, or it's going to get worse. So far, we're just in the first stage of panic here. What do you mean? People grabbing what they think they need, but not many thinking yet about a week from now, a month from now. He paused. A year from now. Have you held a public meeting to discuss with people what happened and what to do? What a disaster, Kate sighed. Yeah, last night. 500 or 600 showed up. It was hard to get the word out. It almost made it worse. The moment Charlie started talking about EMPs and nuclear bursts, some folks just heard nuclear and went crazy, saying they were going home to dig shelters. Same as in Charlotte, according to Don Barber, John said. When the realization finally hits that this is the long haul, people will start looking at each other, wondering if a neighbor has an extra can of food in their basement. Or an extra vial of medicine hidden in a cooler, Keller said quietly. And John knew he was talking about him, but didn't react. That's when either we try to pull together and keep order, or it will go over to complete anarchy. That old Twilight Zone episode, Kate said. The one where a bunch of polite middle-class types are having a friendly social. The radio announces nuclear war, and by the end of the half hour they were killing each other trying to get into the shelter one had in his basement. Funny how we think in terms of film and television now, John thought. The Twilight Zone. Last evening he'd been dwelling on the episode where the aliens started flicking lights on and off in different people's houses, and soon everyone was in a panic, ready to kill one another, the aliens sitting back and laughing. What would Rod Serling say about this now? Presented for your consideration. America disintegrating when the plug is pulled. To hell with the Twilight Zone for the moment, Tom said. Refugees. We're starting to get swarmed with outsiders. That has me worried the most now. At least we know our neighbors who we can count on, but all these outsiders, who knows what they might do? And if too many come in, we'll all be starving in a matter of days. There's 1 million or more in Charlotte, Charlie said, even more in the Triad. If 1 in 100 decides to make the trek, that makes 30,000 mouths to feed. He fell silent, and no one spoke for a very long minute. We'll have to have a plan, Kate said. Sure, a plan. What plan? Charlie sighed. We had a plan for everything else, but never for this one. Never once for this one. And that's why I got caught so off balance, Charlie said sadly, shaking his head. I was waiting for someone to call, to do something. I'm sorry. Charlie, anyone would have been overwhelmed. John said, not altogether truthfully, but still he could see Charlie's thinking. Like the military preparing for combat, disasters were something they drilled for. No one had ever drilled for something at this level, had a master plan up and ready to go, and therefore the precious first few days, when so much could have been done, were lost. Maybe someone in Asheville is getting a handle on it, Tom said. We all saw that Black Hawk go over. He was beelining straight for Asheville. Maybe they got some kind of link up there. John was silent. Asheville. Exit 64 to exit 53. 11 miles. A day hardly went by without Elizabeth trying to figure out some excuse to go to the mall. A week didn't go by when he didn't drop into the Barnes & Noble to browse the military history shelves and then have a coffee, or take the kids downtown to their favorite pizza joint, the Magic Mushroom. where all the weirdos and hippies, as Jennifer called them, went, much to the kids' delight as they enjoyed a meal and people-watched the street scene. 11 miles, across unknown territory. It seemed like a journey filled with peril. My God, in just 4 days, have we already become so agoraphobic, so drawn in on ourselves? I think we should go into Asheville tomorrow and see what the hell is going on there, John finally ventured. Agreed, Charlie replied. John looked around and realized he had put his foot into it. Okay, I'll drive. Chapter 5. Day 5.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Obviously, most people won't have a guy with a plane, but as this book has aged, drone technology has gotten really cheap, so you could have a drone guy that had some stuff protected. I think that would be very invaluable, same as the plane in this situation. Having an eye in the sky, even if you had somebody with some cameras and some like driveway alarms that still worked, if that would really help out a community when you could deploy that kind of stuff too, along with patrols and stuff like that, LPOPs. In the other books that we've listened to, like the Cyber Nuke, they describe the LPOPs and stuff like that, and watchtowers, blah, blah, blah. Here, it's just kind of like they place them on the road and at the college. You never really hear about any other strategic placing in this. And I would love to see a more modern day take on this book, because I think that a lot of things have changed since this came out, and a lot of things are now commonplace. You know what I mean? So we're going to discuss this. So if you guys want to throw in your 2 cents, here's your shot. Hopefully I wasn't on mute for that whole thing. Okay, good.
Well, I think from the beginning, we saw a reiteration of the fact that looting is fucking dangerous, and that's why we do what we do, is so we're not in, so we don't have to fight.
100%. And transfer of disease. I mean, a few days without basic hygiene, nasty stuff moves, man. Especially, care homes, schools, locker rooms of any kind, hospitals. Without the daily multiple scrubbings and cleanings and disinfections that they get, without the daily, everybody uses hand sanitizer when they go to and from rooms, when they handle medication, when they handle like just sheets and basic stuff like that that's cleaned daily at these facilities. Without that, and even still today, we still have like MRSA and stuff that hangs out on like curtains. Okay, they get disinfected, they get sprayed, they get washed how many times, and you still have all this resistant bacteria. That means this bacteria and stuff like that's not going to go away. Staph, all that stuff. It's going to multiply tenfold, 100-fold, 2 weeks of non-cleanliness. Our basic cleanliness we have now, the human race probably has lived more because of penicillin and a bar of soap than anything else, because we can stay clean and we can treat stuff, right? It's crazy. Or ibuprofen, a fever reducer, something simple, So I stock a lot of soap. I stock a lot of hand sanitizer. I like stocking the hand sanitizer with the aloe in it, because it dries out your hands, and you don't need to have cracks and cuts in your hands on top of this stuff, right? Gloves are big, PPE becomes even more important in SHTF, because, oh man, you got something in your eye, you get an infection in your eye. Then what?
There goes your eye.
Yeah, or you're dead. Like, where's your eye infected? Right next to your brain, bro. Like, crazy stuff, simple stuff, man. It's pretty insane. Anybody else got something for that? I'm gonna mute myself for a second. I gotta grab something, so somebody has to do it.
I'll jump in with my 2 cents. And since I was a little late to the party, I jumped in right after he had gone through the old folks home. And that part, when I first listened to this book, that part hit me pretty hard. Um, if you have any loved ones that are in that situation, you definitely got to have a plan to evacuate them from there. And the whole point where there's going to be countless people in there that need help, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm a heartless bastard, but you got to get your people, your person, and you got to roll out of there. I've worked in old folks' homes before, back when I was a carpenter, and my wife was actually a cook for one of those places. And some of the stories you hear of, what goes on in those places during normal times, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine what it would be like when the power goes out. So, think back on the rules of Zombieland, like don't be a hero. You tell my wife all the time, we see like dogs running around on the side of the road. We cannot save the planet. We have to draw that circle around you and make sure those people are good.
Right. And on top of that,
And-
I mean, we don't have endless resources, so you have what you have. And if you take that away to help somebody, like, and it's going to sound heartless, but if you waste that resource on somebody who can't help you or somebody who's not even going to be at your area, and then what? Your kid falls and cuts themselves, and you could have had, that stuff on hand and you used it. Just like he gets further down in this, and he's like, I had that candy bar, but he was going to give it to a starving woman, but then his diabetic daughter might not be able to regulate her blood sugar without it. Crazy stuff, man. And you can't have charity in these times. Like we're in kind of a pampered society where we can do that, and we're gonna have the starving kids in Africa. Please send $14 a month, and we'll send you a T-shirt and a stuffed animal for our support. Yeah, we can do that now. SHTF, man, charity's gone. Like you got what you got, and it will run out. Like none of us can stock enough. Just plain and simple. We cannot stock enough to get through a lifetime of anything, right? And we're not loaded. We can't have a bunker stocked full of supplies like the governments, like the billionaires. They can, because normal people money doesn't mean anything to them. We're normal people. Well, at least I think most of us are normal. I don't know. But
later on, obviously, once like your locality like starts to normalize a little bit, like everyone gets in a rhythm, and everyone figures out Bartertown, and you can expand your circle a little bit to include others. But like there's triage in disaster situations, and there's triage in war. You gotta go around with that marker 1, 2, 3. I can't remember which number's good. Which number is bad?
3 is you're gonna die. 1
okay.
is immediate care, could save you. 2 is it's something
They can wait. It's not life threatening. They can wait. And 3 is you're gonna. Yeah.
Don't waste the medical supplies.
You've got to harden your heart and know what that situation is, because sure, you could probably make that person comfortable in their passing by giving them morphine or whatever, but later on when little Johnny needs like a piece of metal
with an axe,
it has a piece of metal that you need to remove out of his leg. You're not going to keep him still if there's no morphine or anything to dull the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I agree. In the beginning, it's definitely you got to batten down the hatches. The people that make it, we'll make them together later. But
right,
it's
not like a heartless thing. Like it's just we don't have the stuff and the skill set for everything. I just don't. I don't have enough. And I've been prepping for years and multi-generational and everything. And we don't have a freaking field hospital. We can't run an MRI machine in SHTF. I don't know anybody who can. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I can't do open heart surgery. Can you? Does anybody in this chat or anybody on this panel have the stock necessary enough to perform open heart surgery and then keep the patient in like inpatient bay in a sterilized environment for the entire recovery? No, we don't, because we're normal fucking people.
And one of the other things I wanted to point out is what they were just starting to talk about. Like, they need to confiscate everything and like put it all in one location and then divvy it out. That ain't gonna go over too well in most places. Like,
Well-
you're gonna lose. Like, you show up to my house and my basement's full of food, and you're like, "Well, we need it for everyone."
Fuck
Like,
off.
Well, they say not
are
the
those-
houses, but the businesses. And I
Are
agree
the-
with the businesses in the community, I think.
be like, "Hey, bro, are those level 4 plates?"
Right.
Bro, like, I went so many years of
I
going
just tell them I
up
train
of-
pelvic girdle.
I didn't go all these years of, you know, living below my means and, you know,
Sacrificing.
and yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. You know, with sacrificing for freaking just to walk out my front door. You got me fucked up.
Yep.
I told one of my good friends that I used to work with, like, he knew that I was a prepper, and we got to talking about it, and we had that conversation, you know, like, I'll just show up at your house when things get really bad. It's like, will you now?
Shoot you.
Well, so while you're driving new cars and going on vacation every year, I'm stocking food in the basement. So when things get bad, like, I'm supposed to let my kids starve just so you guys don't.
Yeah, and that's a honestly a really big topic that should be talked about with people. When people are like, "Oh, what you're so crazy, you wouldn't have me come over," you just flat tell them, be like, "Would I take a spoonful of food out of my wife or my child's mouth to feed you?" No, I would not. Would you do it if it was on the other foot? No, you would not. Would you take a spoonful of food off of your plate and give it to anybody when that's the last plateful you have? No, you would not.
Makes
You
the
may
holidays
give it to-
weird.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean. But I'm sorry, like, you're not. The people
Somebody-
that think that are so selfish.
Somebody put it to me. I can't remember who the hell said it. I wish I could give them credit. But they said, if you want to show up at my house, you better have 6 months worth of food, a firearm, and like X amount of ammunition. And the person was like, well, if I had that, I wouldn't need to come to your house. Exactly.
Yeah.
Get cracking.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, 6 months is really good. I mean, that's going to get you through most everything. But yeah, and I've had that conversation with people, and they're like R and I have been friends all through school. R didn't know I was a prepper until I brought him in the group. Okay. Yeah, he knew that we had some food and we were hunters and stuff, but he didn't know the extent, right? You don't need to tell everybody anything. And I've known R for almost 25 years. So for 25 years, they don't know.
You don't need to tell everybody everything.
Right. Yeah. They don't. You don't need to tell everybody anything. And that's very important, especially when you get kids going through school, because they give out surveys. Hey, in kindergarten, it happened to my youngest sister. They said, hey, do you have firearms in the house? Hey, do you have drugs? Do you have marijuana? Do you have alcohol in the house? Okay. First off, why do they need to know that? Why are they giving that survey to kids? Because kids don't know how to lie and hide secrets.
Yeah, the kids will give them the truth.
So when I was a kid, I didn't get to see every gun safe. I didn't even know about most of the gun safes. I knew about the hunting gun safe. And when we went hunting, I was given one firearm and I was given a box for that firearm. And we sat down and we cleaned them before we went out. And we got back and we cleaned our birds and our knives and stuff and our guns. And I handed it back and it got put back in. And I didn't get to touch it again until we either A, went out to sight in scopes, or B, we shot clays or whatever to practice. Or C, we train dogs because we fire live shotgun shells over dogs to see if they're gun shy or not for new people. And we throw dummies with pheasant scent and stuff. But that's besides the point. That's training dogs. That's different. But you know what I mean? Like, people, you don't need to, they will try to read your kids that way. And when it gets to the point when they say, do you have a Bible in the house? Are you Muslim? Are you whatever? That conversation needs had before school, where private life at home doesn't need to be brought out to the public.
Those questions aren't to get like a warrant to come search your house. Those are like general area survey questions so that they can figure out what federal funding to like allocate to get warrants to come to your house.
They don't need shit. They don't need any of that information. They don't need, yo, does your dad have nods? They don't know. They don't even know. Does your dad have a drone? Does your dad have a thermal? They don't need none. They don't need none of that shit. You know what I mean? They store fuel. Do you guys have canned food? I don't care. There ain't nobody who needs to know that information.
This conversation reminds me of
Do you have canned food?
No, I have zero canned food.
This reminds me of a stupid video I saw the other day. This guy had this
So
joke
dumb.
with his kid. The guy yells knock knock, and his kid goes, "Show me the warrant."
Hell yeah.
Raising a future lawyer right there. Good job.
Patriot right there. I don't think lawyers are going to be a thing in 10 years with AI.
I know some people in the field, and a lot of them are hitting the cheat button.
Uh-oh.
Uh-huh.
Uh-oh.
A lot
That's
of
not
them are
good.
making a lot of money using the cheat button.
Zoom.com's been a thing for a long time, but you'll still need a physical lawyer. You need a human to answer the phone at 2 a.m.
It's 1:15 and
Did you
Lawfully's
see-
a little drunk and I need him.
No, it's going to be a phone app. Did you guys see that movie Mercy?
They don't give you your phone and lock that.
I had not seen that yet. Is that the one where he has to prove his innocence or whatever?
Yeah, he's trying to prove his innocence to an
That was
AI.
a great movie. That
Yeah,
was
I
a
need to
great
watch
movie.
that
And-
still.
I think they gave the AI like more, I don't know, emotion or whatever in that movie, but it's not going to be like that. It's going to be
He had
cut
like
and
1 hour.
dry.
He had 1 hour and is like, I'm judge, jury, and trial. I'm going to play back
Yeah.
everything. And here it is.
But
Prove
it's
your
going to be
innocence.
it's there's not going to be any emotion involved in it. It's going to be just the facts, ma'am. You know, and like I was saying, you're going to have a lawyer. You're going to have a lawyer app on your phone for sure.
You're still going to have lawyers because you're still going to have juries. And jurors have emotions.
That's the
You
only
might
thing
not have a
saving
jury
half of the
of kids no
country's.
more.
Well, then isn't that? Nope,
That was the whole
know
point of
that.
the. That
What's
was
the
the
whole
whole point
point?
of that movie that I was just talking about. They turned the jury into an AI.
My God.
I thought it was.
And he had 1 hour.
Anyway,
That was a
next
good topic we got on. to.
chapter.
Next chapter.
Oh,
It's
how
10:30.
fucking one more thing I was thinking about.
Go for it.
Planes and satellites falling from the sky. What a bitch.
Yeah, that's covered in one of those Christy Kursky books a little bit better. Which we might need to go
Christine
through those.
Kersey.
Yeah, I can never fucking remember that thing. That actually has a lot.
Put it on a sticky note in front of you.
No.
So when you try to give people credit, you can accurately give them credit.
Listen here, sir. That would be a great
Here,
idea.
Peter Pan.
It's not happening over here, Captain.
Hot damn it.
I'll text it to you.
He won't remember.
I'll delete it. And I'll be like, see ya, sucker. Still love you. All right. We're gonna keep going. Chat. What do we think? We got 9 people watching. Drop a 1 if we're gonna continue the book, or drop a 2 if we're done for the evening.
Run one more.
And while you're
In the chat.
looking that up, do you guys know who your local sheriff is?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
You know
don't.
what's
I know
really
he's
sad is
famous.
I had a great sheriff, and then he decided that one again. I had his personal number.
Oh, no. I like having good. Yeah, you want to have a good sheriff.
Oh, my
He was
new area.
very good.
my new area, I fully intend to introduce myself to the guy, because I think I've said it in a chat before. If for some reason somebody calls the law on you and like tries to SWAT you or whatever the deal is, any reason the police have to show up to your house, they heard some gunshots, whatever. I would prefer that the guy knows me by name instead of, hey, or
On
hey.
positive context.
Hey,
I don't.
Pat Riot.
I don't want to. I don't want a. I don't want a Mr. Riot. I want a Hey Pat. What's up?
Right.
I almost said my real name.
Yeah, I know. That's why I tried to cover for you.
I just about did. You caught me.
We saved you, Pat.
Yep. Good on you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
not real good at this whole espionage
We got
thing.
some more. Let's run it. Dom BDG says they don't have sheriffs in the yeah. By the way, Dom, yours is 14 flat ships, so that might have been the one I made good on. The rest, I still have 3. They didn't have envelopes and or enough boxes at my post office. I went to another one and they had 3 more, so I have 3 more to send. I already spent $146 shipping everything out currently. So, fun fact: Muffin Top has made less than that on YouTube, so I'm in the negative. Just saying. But
Hit,
yeah,
hit the guy up with some super chat so he can balance out the sheets.
yeah, there you go. Anyway, we're going to continue the book. The super chat should be live, by the way, now that you brought that up, because V had to redo her membership, which is BS because YouTube made me, they had to mail shit to me and everything to get it going. And then all of I had to, like, if you ever had a membership or whatever, it has to be redone, which is stupid. So I guess that you would think after you clear that up, they'd just be like, okay, we're going to continue.
Turn it back on.
Yeah, like whatever you had going. So thank you, V, for becoming the first member again, because you know how YouTube pinkies up. So let's do this book.
You don't have a drink.
I have ice water.
This is impossible, Charlie announced, and John grunted in agreement. Just past exit 55, heading west, the interstate was completely blocked with scores of abandoned cars. During rush hour, it was this stretch of road where backups usually gridlocked, and when the EMP did hit, all the traffic had simply stopped, blocking the road across both lanes and the shoulder, where so many had drifted over as their engines stalled. He went into reverse, weaving around the roadblock of cars back to the exit, swung around and got off the road, then went down to Route 70, which paralleled the interstate on the north side. I wanted to go this way anyhow, Washington said, sitting in the back seat of the Edsel. Maybe the Veterans Hospital has some sort of connection. Flanking Washington were 2 of the boys from the college ball team, Phil Vale and Jeremiah Sims. At Washington's recommendation, which Charlie had agreed to, the 2 had come along for the ride. And concealed down by their feet were 2 shotguns, and in Washington's hand a Colt .45. John nodded, took the turnoff onto 70, then headed west again, weaving around stalled cars, under the bridge for the Blue Ridge Parkway, and just past that on their right were the grounds of the Veterans Hospital. They pulled through the gate, and John's heart sank. Somehow he had hoped that here, a veterans hospital, a federal facility, maybe there was a miracle, a hardened generator, or at least some semblance of normal life, of orderliness. He half expected to see troops lined up guarding the place. Instead, it was elderly patients scattered on the lawn, some lying on blankets, others just wandering about. A lane had been cleared of stalled cars approaching the highway, a rent-a-cop holding a shotgun standing in the middle of the road, motioning them to stop. John leaned out as the cop came cautiously around to the side of the car, shotgun half-leveled. "I'm Colonel John Matheson," he announced, feeling a bit self-conscious using that title again. He was so used to being called Professor or Doc these last few years, but Washington had advised him to revert to his old title for this trip. "I live in Black Mountain, and this is Charlie Fuller, our Director of Public Safety, In the back seat there is Sergeant Washington, a retired Marine, and a couple of students from the college. The cop nodded, saying nothing, but he turned the gun away from John. We're heading into Asheville to try and find out some information. Is anything running here? Electricity? Nope. No power. You folks got any? No, sir. Is there anyone in charge here who knows what's going on? Contact with Raleigh or Washington? Again, the cop shook his head. Damn. Yeah, damn, the cop replied. It's hell inside there. These old guys dying off left and right. Wouldn't think they could die so fast when without medicine for a few days. John thought of the nursing home, of Tyler. He had been nervous about leaving Jen and the girls alone with Tyler, but Ben had become something of a permanent fixture at the house, and John's across-the-street neighbors Lee Robinson and his wife Mona, parents of Seth and Pat, had volunteered to come up and give Jen some time off to sleep. Tyler, of course, was failing. There was no IV, no oxygen, just pouring Ensure and water into him through his stomach tube. The agony was no painkillers. It was a blessing, perhaps, that the few days of neglect had pushed him to the edge of a coma. But when he was conscious, John could see the agony in Tyler's eyes. Jen had stayed up through the night, and just before John left, Mona had walked up to lend a hand. John looked around again at the grounds, the patients, a few nurses lugging buckets of water up from a creek at the edge of the hospital grounds. He could only imagine what it was like inside. It was already turning into one hell of a hot day. I think we best head into town, Charlie said. The cop nodded. Good luck, and tell people up there we really need help here, the cop said. Some of the staff, the doctors and nurses, have stayed on, but a lot left and hardly anyone has come back. Why are you here? John asked out of curiosity. Somebody came in yesterday and said a couple of the nursing homes in the area were hit by druggies. Well, there's a lot of that stuff inside that building. Figure they need some protection. Besides, I was a Marine. Took one at Hue, 1968. Those are my comrades in there. I don't have no family to worry about, so I guess these guys are my family. He then thumped his left leg, and there was a hollow echo. Semper Fi, Washington said, and he leaned out the open window and shook the guard's hand. Some advice, Washington then said. Don't stand out in the middle of the road. Set up some sort of road barrier and keep to one side. Use a stalled car as protection. I could have blown you away before you even blinked. The cop nodded. Yeah, guess you're right. Forgot. Tired, I guess. Good luck, Marine. You too. They backed out of the driveway, pulled out onto 70, and continued towards Asheville. A mile farther on, as they came up out of a hollow and started down the long hill that would pass the Department of Motor Vehicles, straight ahead they could see the Asheville Mall, a thick pall of smoke hanging over it. Get on the bypass, Charlie said. Don't go anywhere near it. Driving fast, John went up the ramp onto the I-240 bypass that led straight into the heart of Asheville. Once onto the bypass, he began to wonder yet again about the wisdom of coming into the city. It was like driving an obstacle course with all the stalled cars. Ahead, through the highway cut in Bowcatcher Mountain, he could see numerous fires burning in the city, plumes of smoke rising up, spreading out in the morning heat, forming a shadowy cloud. A trickle of people were walking along the side of the road, and for all the world they reminded him of an old film clip of French refugees fleeing the German advance in 1940. Some were pushing baby carriages, supermarket shopping carts, a wheelbarrow. One family pulling a small two-wheeled cart like the type hooked up to the back of a yard tractor. All piled high with belongings, children, strange things like an old painting, a treasured piece of furniture, a stack of heavy books. As he drove by, going in the opposite direction, all looked towards him as if he were an alien. More than one tried to step out to wave him down. "Gun!" Washington shouted. John hunkered down and hit the gas. A man was running towards them from the side of the road, waving a pistol, and lowered it. "Damn it, Jeremiah, drop him!" Washington shouted. Jeremiah picked the shotgun up from off the floor, but they were already past the man. He had not fired a shot, just waved the pistol angrily. "You keep that gun ready, boy," Washington snapped. "And if I say shoot, you shoot." "Yes, sir." John looked in the rearview mirror. Jeremiah's features had gone pale. He was a good kid, a ball player. Like so many on the team, he tried to act tough and macho, but down deep most of them were small-town church-going kids who never dreamed that in less than a week they'd go from worrying about the next game, final exams, which should have started today, or convincing small-town girls to head off into the woods with them, to aiming a gun at someone and squeezing the trigger. The overpass to Charlotte Street had 2 cops on it, and as he weaved towards it, one of them motioned for him to take the exit ramp off and threateningly pointed what looked to be an AR-15 at him. The interstate bypass ahead was completely blocked. He was planning to exit here anyhow, but still, he had never quite expected such a threatening welcome. The ramp was cleared of vehicles, and he turned left off the ramp and onto the overpass where the cop with the AR-15 stood, weapon leveled. John rolled to a stop. "Who the hell are you?" the cop asked. Charlie held his hands up slowly, motioned to the door, opened it, and started to get out. "Did I tell you you could get out?" "Listen," Charlie replied sharply. "I'm Director of Public Safety for Black Mountain. I'll show you my ID." The cop nodded. Charlie slowly reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and opened it up. The cop stepped forward and leaned over to look at it. "Asshole," Washington whispered from the back seat of the car, his .45 tucked up against his left side. "I'm here to see Ed Terrell, County Director of Emergency Preparedness, to find out what's going on." The cop nodded, then looked back at the car. "I have orders to confiscate all vehicles that are moving." "Listen, officer, we drove up from Black Mountain. I need to see Ed right now. If you confiscate our vehicle, how the hell do we get back?" "You walk. I've got my orders." "Like hell. This is my car, and we're keeping it," John snapped, and the cop turned towards him. "Get out of the car, all of you. You can walk over to the county office. You'll find Ed there. If he says you can have it back and you got that in writing, fine with me. But for now, I'm taking it. You'll find this car behind the courthouse if Terrell gives it back to you." "How about the other way around?" Charlie replied, staying calm. "Get in, ride with us over to see Ed, and he'll take care of it." The cop shook his head. "I've got my orders. Guard this bridge and impound any cars. So the rest of you get out." Charlie, exasperated, looked towards John, who shook his head wearily. Nothing worse than a corporal type, with limited intelligence, a gun, and his orders. No amount of logic in the world could ever penetrate through to him. "You know what you sound like with your damn only following orders?" John asked. The cop looked at him. "A damn Nazi. We keep the car, and Charlie here goes in to see Terrell. You son of a bitch, get the hell out of that car, all of you, and hands over your heads." "Let me handle this," Washington whispered. "Get out. You first, you loudmouth bastard." And the cop pointed the AR straight at John. "Move carefully," Washington whispered. "I'm not budging," John said sharply, loud enough for the cop to hear. "Out, asshole." "It's not asshole. It's Colonel," John replied sharply. "Get out now." And the cop shouldered the weapon, pointing it straight at John's head. "But I'll do what he says," Charlie said bitterly. "Get out, John." "Hey, everybody chill. It's okay," Washington said. And his speech pattern had instantly changed from Marine DI to comfortable, laid-back African-American Southern. "Come on, bro," Washington said, patting John on the shoulder with his left hand, even as he slipped the .45 behind his back. It's cool. Just do what the man says. Washington carefully eased out of the car, putting his hands up in the air. He walked up to the cop, grinning, his gait loose and relaxed, and a second later, the officer was flat out on the ground. The second cop started to swing his AR-15 around, but the .45 that Washington had kept tucked into his belt behind his back was now leveled straight at the second cop's head. "Move an inch, officer, and you are history." The cop hesitated. "No one gets hurt," Washington said coolly. "Mr. Fuller is going in to see Mr. Torrell. Everything will turn out fine, and then we drive away. We'll all just sit here, wait, and talk like friends. Now, son, either drop the gun or I promise you, you will be dead in 5 seconds." The officer laid the AR down. "Boys, take the rifles. They're pistols, too." Washington kept the pistol leveled as Jeremiah and Phil disarmed the 2 cops, the one who had been knocked flat with one blow sitting up, red-faced, blood trickling down from a broken nose. "Sorry I had to do that to you, son," Washington said, then turned to Charlie. "Mr. Fuller, I think you should walk in. If the order is out to confiscate, we'll definitely lose this car trying to drive to the county office. We'll wait here." "I'll go along," John said. "Oh, Colonel, sir," Washington interjected, "I think you need to stay here." "Why?" "More cops might come along, and I just have these 2 boys." John nodded, took one of the AR-15s, and looked over at Charlie. "I'll get back here as fast as I can," Charlie said. "Now listen, if for some chance I'm not back in—" He looked down at his old-style wristwatch. "Make it 2 hours. Go for home. If it looks like you might lose the car or have to fight, get the hell out and I'll walk home later. Okay?" "Sure, Charlie." Charlie turned and set off at a slow trot to the twin buildings of the courthouse and county office. Watching him go, John had the same thought he always did when seeing the twin towers of Asheville. The famous local legend, how back in 1943 the pilot of the B-17 bomber Memphis Belle, Colonel Bob Morgan, had flown his plane between the 2 buildings, a buzz job, with him banking at a 45-degree angle to squeeze through. Morgan was gone now several years, buried in the Veterans Cemetery in Black Mountain, and John turned to look back at the cop with a broken nose, the old Edsel, the 2 wide-eyed students of his. My God, yet again, it was frightful to contemplate how much had changed. "You all right?" John asked, trying to sound friendly, squatting down by the cop's side. "Screw you, you asshole," he snapped. "That black son of a bitch broke my nose." Washington looked down at him and shook his head. "You're lucky that's all I broke," he said softly, all sympathy now gone. "And next time you address the gentleman, the first 2 words out of your mouth are 'Colonel, sir.' And as for me, Sergeant will be just fine. Boys, help him to the side of the road. Put him behind that Honda SUV." He turned and looked at the other cop. "Would you mind going over and sitting down there as well?" The second cop nodded, saying nothing. "Phil, get back into the Edsel. Turn it off, but be ready to fire it up if I give the word. Colonel, how about you and I stand sentry?" Washington leaned against the bridge railing, John beside him, and from a distance it would look like nothing had changed. John pulled out a cigarette, lit one, and saw the second cop looking up at him. "Want one?" "Yes, sir." John pulled one out, handed it down, the cop motioning to his pocket. Washington nodded, and the cop drew out a lighter. "Damn, thank you, sir. Ran out of smokes 2 days ago." John, still holding the pack, looked down and counted. There were 8 cigarettes left. He pulled 2 more out and handed them over. "Hey, thanks, sir." The universal gesture of a trade to cement the peace kicked in at that moment, and John could see the second cop relax, exhaling with pleasure after he took a deep puff. John looked over at the cop who was gingerly touching his now swollen nose that was still leaking blood. You smoke? Kiss my ass. Hey now, Washington said. Gus, you just don't know when to shut the hell up, the second cop said. Stupid shit. You got what you deserve for once. Gus shot him a bitter look, saying nothing, but the gaze communicating that there would be payback time later for the comment. What's your name? John asked the reasonable cop. Bill? What's been happening here, Bill? I guess you can see it, sir. And though still sitting on the pavement, he gestured back towards the town. Looting, panic, martial law declared yesterday. They actually executed a guy last night right in the middle of Pack Place. He had killed a cop. Got what he deserved then, Washington replied. How the hell would you know? Gus replied, his voice thick. Because, you stupid shithead, I'm a cop, but unlike you, I got some sense to me. 24 years a Marine before that. You might not believe this, buddy, but I'm on your side. But frankly, in your case, shore patrol types like you I eat up for breakfast. Some people coming, Jeremiah announced, and nodded up Charlotte Street. I hope you guys cooperate, Washington said. Yeah, sure, Bill replied. I got no beef with you. Besides, you guys were right. Wait until I tell the chief about this, Gus said coldly. Be my guest. I'm not the one who got thrashed. John saw where Jeremiah was pointing, and the sight was absolutely startling. It was like a procession, 100 or more. Mostly the downtown weirdos, as Jennifer called them. Asheville across the years had developed something of a reputation as a throwback, a Haight-Ashbury East, with a bizarre street life of aging hippies and New Agers, Wiccans, and just a lot of drugged-out kids. They were, to John's view, harmless, though the more conservative element of the city and county had real difficulties dealing with them. Frankly, he sort of got a kick out of their presence. There was still within himself a touch of them from his own youth. It was indeed a procession. Some guys up front beating on drums, a couple of girls, one of them definitely cute, with long blonde hair and a 60s-looking, nearly transparent dress on, with nothing on underneath. An old guy, gray beard and hair, wearing a robe carrying a sign that actually declared, "The end has finally come." Another sign read, "Stop globalization." Other signs, "We got what we deserved," and several, "Peace now." Jeremiah stood there grinning as the girl came up to him and did a bit of a provocative dance to the beat of the drum. As the group passed by the side of the Honda SUV, someone slowed. Hey, they've got some cops. Looks like they kicked the shit out of Gestapo Gus. The procession began to grind to a halt. Wow, man, revolution now! Someone shouted, beginning to approach Washington. Revolution my ass, Washington said coldly. And the protester stopped in his tracks. Bill stood up. George, you know me, he said, speaking to the bearded character carrying the End Has Come sign. Yeah, Bill. Everything's cool here. Gus fell and broke his nose. These guys are helping out, so why don't you just move along? The leader nodded. The beat was picked back up, and the parade moved on. Absolutely unreal, Washington sighed. Asheville, Bill replied. You gotta love it, even now at times. I know a lot of those kids. Most of them are okay, even if a bit misguided. The dancing blonde came up to him and kissed him on the cheek. Bill actually patted her on the butt before she danced off. He caught John's eye and grinned slightly. Monica and I had a little thing going a couple of months back. Wow, you and her? Jeremiah asked. Bill grinned but said nothing. John pulled out 2 more cigarettes and gave another one over, both he and Bill lighting up. Poor kids, Bill sighed. Strange when you actually think of it. What's happened, it's what many of them have wished for years. That one guy, though, with the Stop Globalization sign, him I never liked. Talks the peace bullshit line to score with the girls, but down deep a potential killer. Real anarchist. Hell, if he could have pulled the plug, he'd have done it and laughed. Regardless of that, most of them are okay, and besides, it's a free country, isn't it? He chuckled sadly and shook his head. They don't get it now. If this is as bad as I think it is, they'll be the first to die. They don't know how to survive without a society that supports them even as they curse it or rebel against it. He sighed. Once they run out of food, then the reality will set in. But by that point, anyone with a gun will tell them to kiss off if they come begging. And if those poor kids, if they have food, the ones with guns will take it. They're used to free clinics, homeless shelters when they need 'em, former hippie types smiling and giving them a few bucks. That's all finished. They'll die like flies, poor kids. No idea whatsoever how vicious the world can really be when it's scared and hungry. Damn, I hate to see it. Wish their idealisms were true. Gandhi and Stalin. What? John asked. I used to tell Monica that, when we'd get into politics, she'd always talk about how great Gandhi was. I'd tell her the only reason Gandhi survived after his first protest was that he was dealing with the Brits. If Stalin had been running India, he'd have been dead in a second, his name forgotten. John filed that one away. It was a good point. The procession disappeared around the corner, heading back towards their traditional hangout, Pack Place, in the center of town. A Black Hawk flew over yesterday, John asked. Did it land here? Yes, right down in Pack Place, from Fort Bragg. What did you hear? That's when Ed finally declared martial law. We're at war. That's all I know. The guy on board, Bird Colonel, said he'll be back in a week or so, then took off. War with who? No one really knows. Terrorists, North Korea, Iran, China. Just that we got hit with an EMP nuke, so he said that means we're at war. How are things over in Black Mountain? About the same. Some looting, but Charlie got that under control. Memorial Mission Hospital. Is it running? John asked. No, sir. Generators never kicked on. I had to help take an old lady with a heart attack up there last night. We have some old trucks that run, a few cars we use as ambulances. My God, it was a damn nightmare up there. 100 bodies or more lying in the parking lot. And he stopped speaking, looking back towards the town where the old Battery Park Hotel, a hollowed-out shell, brick walls standing, was continuing to burn. Fires dotted the ridgelines beyond. The Doors, Bill said. What? You know, the Doors. The song, This Is the End. Been thinking it a lot. Here comes Charlie, Washington announced. He was coming back up the slope, jogging, obviously a bit winded, and motioned for them to get in the car. John looked at Bill and Gus, who was still on the pavement, eyes red-rimmed, glaring. John went over to the Edsel, pulled a notebook out from under the passenger side, opened it, and scribbled a note, then signed it. He handed it to Washington, who read it, smiled, then signed as well. To Chief of Police, Asheville, N.C. The officer bearing this note, Bill Andrews, is a professional and has our highest recommendation. The incident between us was unfortunate, but solely the blame of Gus Carter, a stupid ass who should be fired before he gets himself killed. Signed, John Matherson, Colonel, retired, Professor of History, Montreat College. Sergeant Major Washington Parker, U.S. Marines, retired. Washington grinned, and then added underneath a postscript. Carter's lucky I didn't kill him. A baby could disarm him. John tore the note out of the pad, folded it, and handed it to Bill. Hope that covers you. What does it say? Gus asked. None of your damn business, John snapped. Get in the car now, Charlie shouted, coming up the last few dozen yards. Colonel, Washington said, clear Bill's weapon, please, keep the ammo, and return it. John pulled the clip, chambered out the round in the barrel, and handed it back to Bill. Gus was on his feet, looking at Washington. "I like your gun," Washington said calmly. "And, frankly, you are a danger to everyone but the bad guys when you are armed." "Give it back," Gus snapped.
Great question.
I'm
It
keeping it.
depends.
"Go explain to
I
your
don't know,
boss how
Waffle.
you lost it. You damn nigger." He didn't get the rest of the word out, Washington delivering a butt stroke to his stomach, knocking him back over. Bill said nothing. "Good luck, Bill," John said, extending his hand, shaking Bill's. John reached into his pocket, pulled out the rest of his pack. 2 cigarettes left. He handed the one to Bill. Again, a flash thought of the Second World War. A GI with a pack of cigarettes was a wealthy man. To share one with another man, or even a captured or wounded enemy, a significant gesture. "We're out of here," Charlie said, coming up to the car, gasping for air. Phil turned the engine over, got out from behind the wheel, and John piled in. "I'll take shotgun," Washington said, getting into the passenger seat. Charlie nodded and climbed into the back with the 2 boys. John went into reverse, swung around, then drove back down the on-ramp, feeling strange driving on the wrong side of the highway, moving fast. Washington took the 2 pistols he now had, the .45 and the Glock, and placed the Glock by John's side. He kept the AR-15 at the ready. "What happened back there?" Charlie asked. "Oh, we made peace," John said. "And you?" "Jesus Christ, it's a madhouse in the county office. Ed Terrell is dead." "What?" "Collapsed about 4 hours ago, dead in a couple of minutes. That really got people panicked. Ed was a good man, tough but fair." "Fair like with our car?" "I'm doing the same thing." John looked up in the rearview mirror. "Like with me?" Charlie hesitated, then shook his head. "Course not, John. As long as you help out like this, I know I can count on you when we need it." John relaxed. "Okay, what's happening?" "That Black Hawk was from Fort Bragg. Yeah, we heard about that from one of the cops. Well, it's bad, real bad. There is no communication anywhere yet. They say they had some radios stored away that were in hardened sites and we'll start getting them out, but nothing pre-positioned. Plans as well to see if any ham radio operators have old tube sets, maybe Morse code." "Sounds like that movie Independence Day," Jeremiah interjected. "You're right, and almost as desperate." "But news, news from the outside?" John asked. "State government's moving to Bragg. Some assets there did survive. Plus, it's damn secure." "Are we at war?" "Nobody knows for sure with who, at least at this level. Rumors that we nuked Tehran yesterday and half a dozen cities in Iran and just blew the shit out of North Korea." "So they did it?" Jeremiah asked. "Like I said, rumors." "How can we do that?" Phil asked. "What?" Hit them, when we can't get anything moving here." "It must have been an event limited to the continental United States. Our assets overseas are still intact, at least for the moment. Oh yeah, there's a rumor the president is dead." "What?" John exclaimed. "Someone said the White House got word about 15 minutes before the blast, got the president airborne on Air Force One, and the goddamn plane wasn't hardened sufficiently and went down." "I can't believe they didn't harden Air Force One," Washington interjected. "Yeah, we can't be that dumb," Charlie interjected, his voice bitter with irony. "Here, right now, what is going on?" John asked. Even as he asked, it felt strange. At any other time in the nation's history, the word that the president might be dead froze the nation in place. John could still remember the day Reagan was shot, the incredible gaffe by Alexander Haig at the press conference when he said, "I'm in charge here." That mere misstatement had nearly set off panic with some about an attempted coup. Air Force One went down? Horrible as the realization was, John felt at that moment it didn't matter to him. It was survival. Survival here, at this moment, his family that counted. And he drove on, weaving around a stalled 18-wheeler, a truck that had been hauling junk food, potato chips, corn chips, and it was picked over like a carcass lying in the desert, hundreds of smashed open cardboard shipping boxes littering the side of the road, bags of chips smashed and torn open lying along the side of the road. An old woman was carefully picking over the torn bags, emptying their meager contents into a plastic trash bag. "They did get lucky with some vehicles in Asheville," Charlie said. "A scattering of cars parked in underground garages. Their big problem is water. At least we're gravity-fed, but part of their downtown has to have the water pumped over Bowcatcher. Though down by Biltmore and on the east side of the mountain, they're still getting supplied from the reservoir. They're badly screwed in that department. That's why there's so many fires." He hesitated. "Therefore, Asheville is trying to organize an evacuation." "To where?" Washington asked. "Well, to Black Mountain, for one. The new guy in charge, I don't even know him. He told me we're supposed to take 5,000 refugees from the city. Didn't ask, no discussion. An order, like he was now the dictator of the mountains. Almost the first words out of his mouth when I reported into him. They want to spread their people out all over the region as far west as Waynesville, north to Mars Hill, south to Flat Rock. Why? Because they think we have food, that's why. The water thing is just an excuse. Hell, they're right on the French Broad River. I heard they even have a tank truck that can haul 5,000 gallons at a clip. It's just an excuse. It's about the food." "Do we have as much on hand as they do?" John replied. Charlie shook his head, features angry. "They got lucky with the stalled trucks on the interstates, a fair number with bulk food on board them, also the rail yard. 2 trucks loaded with 100 hogs even. They were roasting one right behind the courthouse. Dozens of rail cars packed with bulk stuff as well down in the Norfolk and Southern rail yard. Got that from the assistant police chief, a good friend. I tried to raise with this new tin-plated idiot that the county should pool all resources, and he wouldn't even talk about it, just kept ordering me to prepare to take 5,000 refugees, starting in a couple of days. Hell, it should be us moving in with them," Washington said. "Why then?" John asked, a bit incredulous that control had so completely broken down that even on the county level there was no cooperation. "He's planning ahead," Washington said bitterly. "Far ahead. Get rid of half the people and you have food enough for twice as long, and let someone else worry about the rest. And I'll bet more than one of the inside crowd, some of the political heels up in that office and that cronies, will still be eating good 6 months from now. Besides, it's like all city folk. They somehow think there's more food out in the country." John sighed. Scale of social order, he thought. The larger the group, the more likely it was that it would fragment under stress, with a few in power looking out for themselves first. 5,000 might be convinced to share and cooperate. 100,000, self-interests, them and us, would begin to take over, especially with the breakdown in communications. That had always been the power of media in the hands of a good leader, to get individuals to feel as if the leader was speaking directly to them. Churchill in 1940, Jack Kennedy in 1962, and Reagan in the 1980s. A single voice like that now could break the paradigm. But there would be no such voice, and a few cronies of an old political machine in a county government hall might start thinking of themselves and their friends first, and the hell with the rest. John could barely imagine what it might be like at this very minute in a city of 1 million, of 5 or 10 million. "If we let them all in, it will cut in half the time we have before we run out," Charlie sighed. "And I doubt if they'll help us then. So I figured it was best not to stick around and argue. I just told him, I'll take it back to the town council. He then said it was an order. I didn't argue, I just got out. As I left, a couple of cops asked me how I got into town, and I lied. Said I had walked it. Well, that's why I was running. I got a block or two, and they started to follow me. I know this might sound stupid, it was Jeremiah, but I thought we were all in this together. We're neighbors. He hesitated. We're Americans. John glanced back to the rear-view mirror, unable to speak, then focused his attention ahead. They were up to the turnoff onto Route 70. He went down the ramp, swung onto what he still felt was the correct side of the road, and floored it. The line of refugees they had passed earlier was actually larger now, more people on foot, some on bicycles, others having already learned the old refugee trick that a bicycle can be a pack horse. Loaded down, properly balanced, it could be pushed along with a couple of 100 pounds. "Good," Washington announced. "Swerve left." John swung the old Edsel across the highway. Strange, it was right in front of the DMV office. A week ago, a dozen cops would have been piling out to give him a ticket. The gunman cause for a SWAT team to jump in. The gunman was the same as before, standing in front of a car dealership, now stepping out, waving his pistol. Washington raised his AR-15, leveled it out the window. Some refugees were scattering, others just staring at the sight of the Edsel, some just oblivious. "Don't do it," Washington hissed. As if the man had heard Washington, or far more likely, seen the leveled rifle, he stepped back. Washington tracked on him as they sped past, then exhaled noisily. "Professor, I think your student just asked a question," Washington said calmly. John, trembling from the tension, spared a quick glance back at Jeremiah, Charlie by his side. "We're still Americans," John said softly. An hour later, they were back into Black Mountain. There was a roadblock up on the west side of Swannanoa. The chief there had chosen a good spot, a bottleneck where ridges came down on both sides, Route 70, Swannanoa Creek Railroad track, and I-40 side by side. The roadblock had not been up when they had driven through several hours earlier. John had slowed as they approached the barrier. Charlie leaned out of the car, and a couple of the cops recognized him, asked for news, and he had confirmed the rumor that had already reached them that more refugees were coming out of Asheville. John pulled back onto the interstate there, and once past the sign marking the town limits of Black Mountain, he breathed a sigh of relief, and he felt the others in the car relax as well, Washington finally lowering the AR-15. It was as if they had gone to an alien land and were now safely back home. But as they rolled into the parking area in front of the firehouse and police station, John tensed up again. A crowd had gathered, 1,000 or more, and for a few seconds he thought they were trying to storm the building for the emergency supplies. The 5 of them got out, and at the sight of Charlie, several came running up. "They got 2 thieves in there, Charlie," someone said excitedly. John shook his head. Hell, half of the people in this town in the last 5 days had stolen something, even himself. He had never bothered to go back to the drugstore to pay for the medication or chocolate or the $20 he still owed Hamid. Besides, there was no money anyhow. "The bastards that raided the nursing home," someone else shouted, and an angry mutter went through the crowd. Charlie pushed his way through, and John followed, along with Washington. They got to the door. "John, maybe you should wait." "I got a stake in this. I was there. Tyler was affected." "Okay." He followed Charlie in. There was a crowd gathered round the door to the conference room, and John stepped through the group with Charlie. Kate looked up, visible relief in her eyes. "You're back safe, thank God. What's going on here?" "Got these 2, Tom said. At the far end of the room, 2 men, mid-20s from the look of them, one as described by Ira, shaved head, distinguishing tattoo, earring. The other, almost an opposite, looking not much different from John's students, now waiting outside. Fairly well-built, hair cut short, but his eyes. John could tell this kid was something of a stoner. "Charlie, Tom wants to shoot them," Kate said quietly. Charlie sat down against the edge of the table and looked at them. "What do you got, Tom?" "When I got the description from the nursing home, I knew where to look for him," Tom said, pointing at the serpent arm. "Busted him 3 years back on a meth charge. Regular lab, a home just up over the crest of Route 9, owned by his cousin here." "I didn't have nothing to do with it," the clean-cut one cried. "Larry here, he's the one." "Shut the fuck up, Bruce," Larry snapped, trying to lunge towards him but unable to move. Both were handcuffed and bound to chairs. "So I went up there this morning, and sure enough found these two, wasted as shit. You'll see the track marks from the morphine." John looked closely at the clean-cut kid. There was some recognition. "Professor Matheson, you know me. I took History 101 with you 4 years ago. You know me." John looked at him carefully. He was never that good with names, but faces he did remember. Yes, Bruce had been a student, showed some promise, then just disappeared from the campus after a semester or two. Tom looked over at John. "He was a student once, several years back." "That doesn't matter now," Tom said. "I want a lawyer, a fucking lawyer," Larry shouted. "I know my rights. You dumbass cop, you didn't even read me my Miranda. So you really fucked up this bust. I'm out of here once I get a lawyer. Brutality as well." And he turned his head to show a swollen cheek, right eye half shut. "We are under martial law now," Charlie said quietly, breaking into the argument. Bruce looked over at Charlie, eyes wide. "What does that mean?" Charlie stood up and looked around. "Witnesses? We fetched the supervisor down from the nursing home. She's outside." "Bring her in," Charlie said. John stood up as Ira came in. She looked worse than yesterday, hair uncombed, dirty. It was obvious from the stains on her silk blouse and the smell that she had at some point snapped out of her shock and was trying to help with the patients. She looked at the two young men. "The one with the tattoo, that's definitely him." "Lying bitch, it was dark. How could you see me?" "How do you know it was dark when they were robbed?" Charlie asked. "Heard it from somebody," came the muttered reply. "The other one? I'm not sure. But that tattoo, I remember that." "Thanks for the identification." She nodded. Charlie hesitated, looking around. "Will you swear to this?" "Sure, Charlie." "Someone find a Bible." Kate went into her office and returned a moment later with a King James. Charlie wasn't sure of the exact line, so Kate swore her in, and Ira repeated her testimony. "You got the drugs, Tom?" Charlie asked. "In my office." "Go get them." He returned with several dozen vials of liquid morphine, containers of other drugs in pill form. "Tom, just look on the containers," Ira said. "Miller's Nursing Home, followed by a code number, should be on them. All controlled substances, when shipped, have tracking numbers and delivery ID numbers." And she repeated the coding. "The same," Tom replied. "John, would you witness to that?" John looked over with surprise at Charlie, as if being dragged in. But the memory of the suffering in the nursing home filled him. Kate swore John in. He went over, picked up a container. "It says Miller's Nursing Home. Tom, you next," Charlie said. Sworn in, Tom repeated his testimony as well. Finished, he stepped back around behind the two. "You men have anything to say?" Charlie asked. "I want a fucking lawyer," Larry shouted. "Do you have anything to say?" Charlie repeated. "Yeah, I sure as hell do. Give me the damn Bible," Bruce said. Charlie reddened, looking over at Kate. "The Holy Bible, please," she said slowly, forcefully. Larry said nothing. "I want the Holy Bible, please," Bruce said. Charlie picked it up, walked it down the length of the table, and put it down in front of Bruce, who was then sworn in. "Tell us your story, Bruce." For the next 5 minutes he rambled on. He had nothing to do with it, Larry just coming in with the drugs. Who the second guy was, Bruce didn't know. He and Larry had divided the loot. John watched Bruce carefully. The man, still not much more than a boy, actually, maybe 21 or 2, was obviously terrified. And as well, John could sense Bruce was lying. All the years as a prof had sharpened his bullshit detector, as he called it. Bruce finally fell silent. "Ira," Charlie asked, "how much morphine in liquid form was taken?" "We keep individual vials for each patient using it, since dosage and strength vary. I think about 40 or so." "We confiscated 32, Tom interjected. "Not much of a cut between your friend here and his buddy," Charlie said. "You mean the other guy walked off with 8 vials and Larry kept over 30? "Yeah, that must have been it. No one argues with Larry." "Or 8 vials would be one hell of a party," Tom interjected. "It's a wonder they didn't kill themselves." "You bastards." It was Ira, her voice breaking. "I got 7 patients dying of cancer. 2 are dead now, thank God, but the others are in agony, and all I have for them is what was in their daily trays and then aspirin. I hope they shoot both of you." She fell silent, eyes burning with rage. "Larry," Charlie said, motioning to the Bible. "Why bother?" Charlie nodded and then looked back at John. "John, I want to keep this formal. I'm appointing you to speak on behalf of these 2 men. "What?" "You heard me. My father-in-law is tied into this. John, just do me the favor. Go get Norm Sage. He's a lawyer. He can do this better than me. Norm's house is miles from here. I can drive it. John, I want this done now." "I want a fucking lawyer," Larry stated yet again. "Yeah, go get Norm." John looked at him, then to Bruce and over to Ira, and then out through the half-closed blinds to the crowd gathered outside. John finally nodded and stood up. "I'll say this for them. The world we knew, maybe it's finished forever. Maybe not, but I doubt that. All that holds us together now are the things we believed in, the traditions of who we were, who we still want to be. Charlie, I guess you'll make the decision. Guide yourself with that thought of what this country is supposed to be, even in these dark times. I know what you are thinking. I know what our neighbors outside are thinking. But whatever your decision, know it is a foundation point for what follows. But if we make a mistake here, Charlie, then we've lost that foundation." He paused. "We are no longer Americans." He stepped back to the corner of the room. Charlie stood silent, head lowered. Bruce started to cry. Charlie finally raised his head. "I dread this," he said quietly. "I never thought I would ever do something like this. But I must think of the community." He stepped to the center of the room, behind the chair Kate was sitting in. "Larry, Bruce," he hesitated. "Randall and Wilson," Tom interjected. "Larry Randall and Bruce Wilson," Charlie continued. "I sentence you to death by firing squad for the crime of looting precious medical supplies, not only from this community, but from a facility where people were in desperate need of those supplies to ease their final pain. Execution to be carried out immediately." "You bastard," Larry hissed. "Son, you are about to go before God. I'm giving you 10 minutes to make your peace. Someone go find a minister for them," Charlie said and walked out. John followed him as he went into his office, and Charlie did not object as John closed the door. He pulled out the last cigarette in his pocket and lit it. Charlie looked at it longingly for a few seconds, and John was ready to offer it over, but Charlie then shook his head. "Did I do the right thing, John? Frankly, I'm so damn mad at those 2 animals, especially that Larry, that I'd do it myself without hesitation. But still, did I do the right thing?" John sat down and didn't speak for a moment. He was torn as well. Again, memory of his own temptation with Liz at the pharmacy to snatch the medicine he needed for Jennifer. "John, it's like we're back 150 years, the Wild West. I kept thinking of that movie, Oxbow Incident. Remember the hang 3 guys in that movie but then find out they're innocent? Yeah, same thought here. It was just on TV last week. One of Henry Fonda's best. A week ago, Charlie sighed. Just that short a time? They are not innocent, though, John said. But still, a week ago we didn't kill screwed-up punks for stealing drugs. That Bruce kid, right guidance, he might have straightened out. John shook his head. Look, Charlie, might have beens are finished. Charlie, we got 6,000, maybe 7,000 people in this town now. How much food? How much medicine? Water still works for downtown as long as the pipe to the reservoir holds, but up on the sides of the hills we're out. Charlie, we don't keep order. In a month, people will be killing each other for a bag of chips. John felt the heat of the cigarette burning his fingers, and he looked around, then dropped it into an empty coffee cup. Or a pack of smokes. I'm sorry for that one boy, but you did the right thing. Just keep in mind what I said on their behalf back in there. Charlie nodded. There was a knock on the door. It was Tom and Kate. Charlie motioned them in. Reverend Black is in there with them. Time is just about up, Tom said. Tom, you will not do the execution, John said. Tom looked over at him. You are the police authority in this town. If someone must do the execution, it cannot be you or any other officer or official of this town. That terrible task has always been kept separate from the hands of those out in the field who directly enforce the law. If not, well, he thought of Stalin, of the Gestapo. It has to be someone else. Tom nodded, and John was glad to see that in spite of his angry talk earlier, Tom was relieved. John looked over at Charlie. Not me, John. No, it can't be you either, Charlie. You're the emergency government, and Kate, the traditional government. No, not you. Then who? Charlie asked. No one spoke. You, John? Kate said quietly. Startled, he looked at her. He had simply been advising as a historian. He never imagined it would come back on him like this. Damn all, I was not volunteering myself, John said. I was just trying to keep us in touch with who we once were as a country. I'm not going out there to ask for volunteers, Charlie said. I will not let this turn into a circus with some sick bastards mobbing in to take a shot. I want you to do it. You're the historian, John. You understand it, the meaning of it. You're a respected professor in the town. Everyone knows you or knows your kin here. Oh, Jesus, John whispered, knowing he was trapped. Reluctantly, he nodded his head. Where? Tom asked. John couldn't think. The town park, Charlie said. It's the public gathering place. I don't want it here. Fine then, Tom replied. We take them down to the park now and do it. We load them into Jim's van. The tennis courts have a concrete practice wall. I'll go outside and announce it for 1/2 hour from now. The mention of the tennis courts chilled John. It made him think of the Taliban and the infamous soccer stadium in Kabul. Is that what we have now? Tennis courts? Maybe in private, Kate ventured. Maybe in private. I don't like the thought of public execution. I don't either, John said slowly. But we have to do it. There's fear in this town. I'm hearing people say that the refugees from the highway are outsiders. We're already beginning to divide ourselves off from each other. We do private executions, and I guarantee you, within a day there'll be rumors flying from those who don't live here that we are doing Stalinist courts and executing people in the basement of the police station. If we are forced to do this, we do it in public. Besides, Tom interjected, it's a statement to anyone else who might be thinking about stealing. Wait a minute, Tom, John said. I pray we aren't down to killing people for stealing a piece of bread. Tom shook his head angrily. John, don't misread me. You might not believe this, but I don't like it any more than you. John stared into his eyes and then finally nodded. Okay, Tom. Sorry. I'll go make the announcement. Tom, Kate said. Adults only? I don't want kids down there. Tom left the room, and seconds later there was the crackling hiss of an old handheld megaphone, and Tom began to speak. There was a scattering of applause, even a few cheers, someone shouting a rope would be better. Damn, it did feel like an old Western, John thought, the crowd all but crying, "Lynch 'em." The crowd immediately broke up, many setting off for the park, some, especially those with children, staying behind. Long minutes passed, John silent, looking out the window. He heard cursing from out in the corridor and crying. The two were being led out. "We better go," Charlie said, and opened the door. John felt as if he were being led to his own execution. Could he do it? All those years in the army, the training, but never a shot in anger or even in detached professionalism, as they were told they should act. During Desert Storm, he was XO of a battalion, but even there he was in a command vehicle a couple miles behind the main line of advance, never on the actual firing line pulling the trigger. He thought of the taunting rednecks back.
Okay, Muffin Top's tired. Gotta go to work. Closing
Hang 'em.
statements.
Hang them.
Good stuff. Don't be a thief in SHTF, especially when medical supplies are short. Don't be a dickhead.
Yep.
Deuces.
Drink water.
Do you think things
move
would
more.
have changed if
Go
would
for
the
that.
situation have been different if the guys had a like a sick mom back at their house?
Taking all of it? No. Taking it regardless, no. Especially if they really don't know what they're doing. Measuring it out, whatever. To put them down. You know what I mean? Getting high, probably throw them in a blender. All right, y'all.
Yeah.
Play nice.
Things will be biblical in the end. Y'all
Yep.
be nice.
Hashtag slinging Glocks. Not Walther.